Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. And today we are going to be looking at a very special topic, understanding the industrial training fund process. Understanding the industrial training fund process. And just before I introduce our facilitator for today, let me just share a little story. You know, I reached out to a friend, Loretta. I'm sure our facilitator knows her very well. I am on a couple of groups with Loretta, and on this particular day, somebody asked some questions around the industrial training fund, and Loretta answered those questions fantastically well. Very beautiful, very detailed. So I made a mental note of that. This is about 5 months ago or 6 months ago. That's just to also say that when you create impressions, it lingers. So one day I was now thinking about, oh, I think this is a high time we feature this topic on this program. And I reached out to Loretta to say, hey, Loretta, how are you, my sister? I need you to come to our training webinar and facilitate. Fortunately, she attends quite a number of sessions, and I know she's quite good. She now said, Mr. Oluyemi, thank you for reaching out to me, but there's somebody that is teaching me this thing. I can give you his number. His name is Mr. Folaranmi Oladejo. I think he will do better justice to it. Before I could say yes or no, she now sent his number. She now also mentioned that if necessary, I can put a call to him or send him a message to expect your call. I said, Loretta, don't worry. He's on my direct contact list. We are friends, actually. So I didn't tell you this before, but just to let you know that I reached out to somebody who now pushed you forward. Of course, I'm not just trying to share this gist just to make us laugh or smile, even though that's part of the reasons, but it's also to let us know the wealth of experience that our facilitator, Mr. Folaranmi Oladejo, is bringing to the table. He was literally recommended for this role from somebody I discern to be competent to handle this session. So, because of some of us who may not know him yet, Mr. Folaranmi Oladejo has a master's in business administration, is an associate of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management. Fola is a certified strategic, result-driven human resource professional, and is with experience both in the private and public sector. I like that. Both in the private and public sector, okay? Cutting across various industrial climes, which include education, hospitality, health, real estate, non-governmental organizations, management consulting, and telecommunication. He partners with organizations to plan and provide strategic people management support to businesses in order to promote and implement HR ideals while leveraging talent and best practices to drive organizational effectiveness. He has over 15 years quality experience. I tell people, sir, some people have 10 years experience, but it's 1 year experience repeated 10 times. Right. This is 15 quality cumulative experience, okay, in the area of human resource management and administration. And he has extensive experience in management across the entire HR value spectrum. All right. I mentioned earlier that he has his own master's in business administration. He has a degree also in business administration. He has an HND also in business administration. He's so good. He's like JJ. They named him twice. Anything he does it twice so that he can know it. He's an alumni of the Oba Awon University. I beg your pardon. Oba Femi Awolowo University, OAU. All right. And he currently works as the head of human resources and admin at Anchor Telecoms and our sister company, MangoNet Integrated Telecom Technologies Limited. Without further ado, with warmth and applause, with emoticons and emojis as our purpose, please let's receive to the virtual lecture, Folaranmi Oladejo. You have the floor, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Ayemi, for that a wonderful introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So happy to be, I'm delighted to be here this evening. It's another time for us to share. Of course, Mr. Emi, this is an opportunity that I wouldn't take for granted. That story, that short story that you mentioned, well, I've noted it, and I'll also get back to the rest of that. So anyways, let's go straight to the topic for today. So today we want to look at industrial training fund, the processes. Industrial training fund, ITF, the processes. So as we all know, yesterday during the session yesterday, which one of my which she facilitated, and then she said, the things that we do here are not things that we don't know. Things that we do here are things that we already know, but we are, constant. We will continue to remind ourselves of how these things are done, so that we have these things. We keep these things keep ringing in our memories and all of that. Okay, so understanding the industrial training front. What exactly is ITF? And what is the reason and the need for ITF? One, we need to understand that ITF, of course, we know is one of the compliance items. We talk about the NSITF, the PAYE, the pension, and the likes. So ITF on its own, it's also a compliance item. And then the reason for establishment, let's go ahead and see what the outline means. So we'll be looking at this, looking at what ITF is all about. We'll be looking at obligations of employer, and then we'll be looking at roles of HR. That's very important. And then we'll look at remittance processing or process. And then we'll look at reimbursement process. And then what employers stand to benefit from this arrangement, from this ITF cost. And then we'll look at what the country, or you say government, also stand to benefit. Then we'll look at sanctions and penalties. So let's move on. ITF, what is it all about? So ITF on its own, like we said, is an agency of the government. And it was established in 1971 by a decree. But in 2011, it was reviewed, it was amended, and it was turned into act to be aligned, to align with the democratic process. This is the era of democracy. So now we have ITF Act 2011 as amended. And the essence of it, or the importance or the reason for ITF establishment, is to support the development of indigenous manpower, support and encourage the development of indigenous manpower to meet the human resources demands of Nigerian economy. What do we mean? These days, most employers, they find it difficult training their staff. The amount of money they invest in training, especially some of us that work in project management company, construction companies and the likes. And then how much you need to keep your employees, how much you need to empower them, to build their capacity, to train them so that they are in alignment with what we have in our modern world. And so, but most companies, they look at it, some of these trainings are so, cost effective. I mean, they're so expensive that most employers don't want to, they feel reluctant in, to actually train their staff. But with the establishment of ITF, the government is saying, okay, yes, we understand your position. We know most of you might not have that money, at a time to continue to train it, because by provision of ITF Act, as a company, you are meant to train 15%, at least 15% of your employees on annually, a year. At least 15% of your employees, you need to train them per year. So for most employers, they find it difficult. By the time you look at how much spending, training them at different cadre and all of that. So that is why the government is saying, okay, so this is a pause. ITF is like a pause. It's like a susu. You are doing a job, you are being cooperative. So if you don't have the money, this is where all of us will put money to take care of all of us. Let us continue to contribute in this wallet, and so we can take care of all of us. So at the end of the day, after you have actually, you have actually embarked on the training, you've trained your staff and all of that, then you can come back and claim like up to 50% of whatever you have expended, up to 50% of your training expenses, so that at least you get some level of, how do I put it, cushion, so that at least you are training your staff, you are building capacity right in your own company, and of course, this is in alignment with the provision of the law as well. So that, like I said, the ITF came into being, and then that is the reason why the Act was actually established. We continue to encourage, support the development of indigenous manpower to meet the demands of the Nigerian economy. Let's move on. And so we say, what are the obligations of the employer? What are those things that you expect as an employer? What are those things that I expect to do? Again, most of us as HR people, we understand that ITF is a compliance item, and we know the calculation. We know at the end of the year, 1% of your total payroll figure is going to ITF, yes. So many of us, we've been doing that. In fact, I know somebody that has been doing that for the past almost 10 years. And they've never deported in any way. But again, they have never also benefited from the pause, and they have been training their staff. So if you look at that kind of situation, you have been contributing, but you're not benefiting. Do you want to call that ignorance, or you want to call it lack of information? So, but information is out there. So the obligations of an employer is one. The acts make the provision that once you have an employee of minimum of 5 on the one hand, or you have a annual turnover of 50 million and above, then you are to key into this arrangement. So at the end of the year, they expect 1% of the total payroll figure if, as an employer, you have a minimum of 5 employees, or you have not less than 50 million annual turnover. So you contribute 1% of the total annual payroll figure into that pot. When are you supposed to do this? The employees in this category, you are meant to return, you are meant to send in your 1% between the first quarter of every year, meaning, not later than second quarter, meaning from January till April. First quarter is January, February, March. So by first week of April, you are expected to have, sent in the one for previous and one for last year. You are expected to have sent in your 1% into that course, by April. That's by the beginning of second quarter. So that is employer's obligation. And let's move on. Employer's obligation continue. So the following are also to be submitted as an employer. And of course, this is the role of HR. As an employer, HR is the one, in charge of all these activities that we are about to mention. One, get before the end of the first quarter of every year, you must submit to the ITF office. One, don't forget, if you must benefit from that course, you have been contributing, yes, but if you must benefit from that course, you have to submit certain documents. One, your company training policy. Your company training policy. Many of us, of course, we know how to do this. We have our different policies, so many policies and all of that. So your policy on training, your company's training plan, again, for the year, your IT Form 3A. We'll see more about this Form 3A. So there are a number of forms that you need to take note as far as ITF is also concerned. All these forms are downloadable. You can go on their website, download, or you can also visit any ITF office that is covering your own any ITF office that is covering your own company, or anyone that is just nearby, visit them. They will still, give you further information to those forms. So, like I said, your training policy your training policy, your public training plan for the year, the IT Form 3A as application for learning. So you want to apply, if you want to do a training, this and that and that. So you fill that form, then the appointment letter and curriculum letter of the dedicated learning and development personnel. So your facilitator, who you are bringing on board, who you are engaging for the purpose of that training. Of course, you have an engagement letter for that person, and you want to have their CV. If it's a company, of course, you have profiles of their lead facilitators and the like. So these are things you put together, and you must also secure a training approval. That is very important. Before you embark on any training in the course of the year, secure an approval from the ITF. Fill all the forms, submit all your necessary, fill all the forms, submit all the necessary documentation, and then move ahead. So now there are two different kinds of training that we can also conduct, and we can also training part of the year. So you have local training, you have international training. You can whether international or local, you still can get reimbursement for whatever the expenses from ITF. So for local training, you are expected as an employer to fill all the forms, all your documentation, put them together, and send in your documentation to ITF, get an approval. All this must be done at least 2 weeks to the time of the training, so that you get your approval, you have everything before you move into training. Not that you must not, it's not that you have done it, you have done the training and then you are coming back. ITF must give you an approval before you go ahead to do the training. All right, and also it's in a case of international training, then everything has to be, within a period of 3 weeks before the actual training. And then you have your audited account for the financial year, of course, the previous year. So you put all that together. Then the company asks till the end of the first half of the year, that's June. So if you have submitted all your documentation and then they have approved, you have your approval. Then you have conducted your training, your staff have done for the training, you have benefited, you have done the training and all of that. So if you now want to ask for reimbursement, which they have given you approval to do a training that the ITF has given you approval to, and then you want to ask for reimbursement. So you have from January till June, first half of the year, to claim this reimbursement. This area is very important. So you have to start. So sometimes I keep telling people, you don't have to wait even until January. So whatever, just find all your documentation, go and give them, and then let it be there, and then you do your follow-up. So you have that. So let's move on to the next slide. So what are the rules of HR? This is what is most important, because all these things will not happen, by itself. HR are the drivers. HR are the ones to make sure, that things are in place. You are the ones to make sure that ITF, your company is registered with the ITF. This is a compliance item. You make sure that your company is registered with ITF. You also make sure that you have your training policy. You have your training policy in place. You have your training plan for the year in place. So, and then of course, HR is, we are the custodian of payroll. And then you are the one to also make sure that at the end of the year, you have your annual, your 1% requirement. You have your 1% deducted and remitted, to ITF. And also you identify training, like I said, identify training needs. We did some, did a job evaluation yesterday, and then you look at it. Training needs can come out from so many areas. As we know, from your performance appraisal, from whatever you have. So as HR, these are things that you need to make sure that are in place. Make sure that your company is registered with ITF. Make sure that you have your training plan in place. Make sure that you have your training policy in place. Make sure that you fill all your forms, for approval of the training. You have all those from what do you call it? ITF form 1, 2, 3, 4, and in some cases 5. We'll get to those forms. ITF form 1, 2, 3, 4, and in some cases 5. We will get there. So all those forms, HR person in that organization is your responsibility to make sure that all these forms are properly filled, all the supporting documentation, all the supporting documentation are properly put together. Then you submit to ITF. So what is the process of remittance? So it's very simple. It's not difficult. ITF is an agency of the federal government, and any remittance, any fee or any level, whatever money you want to pay to federal government offer, is through TSA. So you can go through ITF portal to pay, and then you can also pay via remitter. But if you don't even know how to pay at all, go to bank, visit any commercial bank, tell them you want to pay into ITF portal. So they do all these generator error, which you now take to ITF office. So, and then once the payment has been confirmed, ITF will give you a receipt. They will give you a compliance certificate that, yes, you have been complying. This is your certificate. And then that is what you hold on to. It's part of the document. It is part of the items, it's part of the documents that are needed for approval of your training when you want to claim reimbursement. And then we'll move on. So the next slide, we have a reimbursement process, like I said. So all employers, if you have been contributing and you are up to date, you have been contributing to that force, you are entitled to claim at least 50% of your contribution to that force to cover your training expenses. Training expenses, training that has been approved. Don't forget, your training must be approved before you say you want to claim reimbursement. If you have done any training that has not been approved by ITF, you cannot come back and say, ITF, come and reimburse me. See, I've done on this training, my staff has done all of this, and then you go back to them. No, because you did not carry them along ab initio. So you have to make sure that your trainings are actually, you actually get them approved before you go into the training per se. So like we said, number one in the process of reimbursement, I used to tell people, in any of your dealings with any of the government agencies, one, make friends. Make friends and be friendly. I'm saying this because I've worked in the public sector. I understand the way things work. So you should understand that this is an agency of the government. There are a lot of bureaucracies, there are a lot of red tapeism, unnecessary bottlenecks in the process. Somebody must sign this one before this one must come and sign. If this one is on leave, another person cannot sign. Sometimes you have to carry the file to his house to go and sign. Sometimes this file, all those nonsense. So, but if you want to find your way around all these, bottlenecks, one, make friends. Make friends with some of the ITF staff. Be friendly with them. Put calls through, bros, okay, how far now? How's your family? Hope you are doing well. Chat them up. They are the ones, they will even be the ones to help you at the end of the day. Sometimes they fill the form for you, they do everything for you, and they process it for you. Most of the time, they also expect to come with PR. But that's part of this, let's leave that aside, because these are some of the things you normally come across when you are dealing with them. So anyways, so once you make friends and then you'll be friendly, this of course will save you a lot of time, will save you a lot of energy, and then you'll be able to move on seamlessly. And then so like I talked about other forms that you need to do from 1, 2, 3, and 4. So form 1 is the summary of reimbursement claim for the year. After you have conducted your training, you have done your training, approved training, and then so you have the training details, you have done everything, you put everything, all to your training attendance, evaluation, and everything, you have them in place. And then so you have this form 1, you fill those details, you fill everything in that form. And then form 2, areas of approval. When you seek approval, you might put across so many things. You want to go for this training, you want to go for this training, HSC training, training on leadership, training on this, training on that. But ITF will give you approval based on what they feel, they will give you approval, a particular approval for whatever training they want you to conduct. So whatever approval they give you is what you feel in that form 2. So that's what we call it, area of reimbursement approval. And then you move on to form 3. Form 3 is training personnel. We talk about the agency you want to engage or the facilitator, the credentials and the financials, details of engagement, the engagement letter, the financials, how much are you paying the vendor, how much are you paying the facilitator? All those are also in part of what you're going to do in that form. Then cost approval obtained from, make sure you get that cost approval from ITF. They are going to give you an approval for you to proceed on that training. And then, like I said, training cost and expense details, all that we put together. You put all that together and make sure you submit to ITF. So now let's look at these forms one by one. So for you to get reimbursement after you have done training, you have gotten approval, and then you want to come back and say, okay, ITF, based on your approval, we have done this training, and then I'm here for reimbursement. This is how much you have spent. Then I've filled all the form, we've submitted all the documents. This is what we need. So Form 1 and 2, excuse me. So employers, after calculation, should fill their claims on the form, which must be signed, stamped, and dated by the employer, by employer's rep. That, of course, HR is the person that is handling that. So it has to be signed by the HR of that company. So Form 1 and 2 is where you fill everything that I said, your training details, the training, the approval area they gave you, training details and the likes of them, and then the financials, the training fee, the training cost and all that, you put it together, you use Form 1 and 2. Don't forget, I said these forms, you can download them from the websites of ITF. That's people, in fact, go to the office, forget the internet, so that at least you relate with people that you have on ground. This information is available online, yes. Let's take a further step and move to the office, relate with people, be friendly with them, and then, Then the next one is Form 3A. Form 3A is for the learning and development personnel. The one I talked about is, I said, whoever is the facilitator or which agency you are bringing in, which vendor you are bringing in, fill their details, fill their details, and then have that, have their CV, have the course, fill the form properly, attach everything to the form, and then we move to Form 4. Form 4 is, each training based on identified training, it must also be submitted with identified. So each training program that I go to do, you use Form 4 to fill those training. You fill the details as well in Form 4, and then you submit for approval. So you take those from 1, 2, 3, and 4. By the time you see those forms, of course, when we see forms, we know how to be filling forms. So when you see forms, you know the details to fill in. Forms are just asking questions: what do you want to do, which training, what are these? So all those things, you fill them in, and then you submit. So I talked about Form 5. So Form 5 is actually dealing with some of us, those employers that take IT students. IT students, some of them will come for 3 months, 6 months for COS. Not all employers. I know we know that not all employers take IT. Some might say because of space, some because of so many other reasons, don't take IT. But if you're an employer and then you take IT, although ITF encourages encourages employers to take to take COS IT students. So if they encourage you, if you are an organization, a small size organization, they encourage you to take up to like 12 IT students. Of course, at the end of the day, you claim reimbursement, and ITF is paying IT students and all that. So they encourage you to take up to like 12 of them if you're a small organization. And for big corporations, for larger organizations, they encourage them to also take about 36, maximum of them. At least you have them, in your system as well. So, and then we move on to the next slide. We have how to process industrial training from compliance certificate. So this one is very important as well. If you have been contributing to ITF course, you need a certificate to say, yes, you have been contributing. So there are certain documentations also for you to be able to secure this certificate. So compliance certificate, like I said, you might need it in so many. If you're an organization that you do with some private organizations, you take contract from government, agencies and parastatals, like my own company. I work in telecommunication now, and then of course, we have businesses with government and state, parastatals. And so there are certain things, when you want to take contract, you want to bid for contracts from government agencies. They ask you for certain documentation. They ask you for tax clearance for 3 years. They ask you for audited accounts. They ask you for ITF certificate. Some of this is an intertwined. By the time they ask you for ITF, by the time you want to process ITF, that will link you to NSITF. Because before you can get this one, you have to have this one. So if you want to run away from one, you might be able to run away from it, but at the end of the day, you are still coming back to it. Because by the time you want to process certain things, you want to work with government, some of these things has a way, they have a way of linking to each other, they are intertwined. So for you to claim this your certificate of compliance, with ITF, you need your CSC certificate, your CSC registration certificate of the company. You need certified true copy of your company audited account for the previous year. And then you need your company's tax clearance. In most cases, they have for 3 years. And then you need your payroll. Now, on that payroll, your payroll, many of our payrolls are being doctored. For what reason? For the purpose of tax. But ITF people, so if you are remitting your 1%, in your own mind, you might be calculating your own 1% based on what you have. But by the time you submit your document, you submit them. So ITF will come back and say, this is what you have remitted at your 1%, but in actual fact, that is not your 1%. So they will do their own calculation. They will come back to it and tell you this is what your 1% is supposed to be, And so they tell you whatever is your shortfall, and then you have to pay it for that purpose. So all these things, like I said, you put them together for you to be able to process your compliance certificate. You have your CSC certificate. You have your audited account certified true copy certificate for the previous year. You have your tax clearance certificate for the company, and then you have your payroll for the year as well. Sometimes they might ask for 3 years. And then, so what are sanctions and penalties? If you are not remitting, if you are not compliant, if you have not been complying with this law, because like it's a compliance item, and it's what all employers are to do. So if you are not complying, what are the sanctions? Now, the penalty for late remittance or non-remittance is 5% monthly interest on the unpaid amount. So if your total, let's say for instance, your total payroll figure for last month, for last year is 20 million. So, and then you want to remit your 1% of that 20 million. 1% of 20 million is, I think it's 1 million. Your 5% of 20 million, I think it's 1 million if I'm right. So anyway, so your 1% of that, you remit it, and don't forget, you must remit it as at between the first quarter of the following year, from January to the first week of the next quarter. So January, February, March, latest by the first week of the next quarter, which is April. So you must remit it. So if you don't remit it, of course, we know this is the law in principle, or in practice, we know this is Nigeria. So, but anyway, best practice, make sure you remit it between January and first week of April of the following year. So we remit in area. So for last year, remit between January and first week of the following year. So sanction for it, if you fail to do that, 5% monthly, not on annual, whatever you are supposed to remit, and not on your 1%, 5% monthly interest every single month. You continue to incur 5% for every single month of default. That's what it is. And so that is what you are going to incur as penalty for either late remittance or for non-remittance, or for non-remitting at all. And then, so what are the benefits? What do you start to benefit? What does government start to benefit from this? Why did they even, like we said, the reason government established ITF, the main reason was to support support and encourage development of skilled indigenous manpower, for the Nigerian economy. So that, of course, is going to make sure that in our industry around, like we said, some companies, they find it difficult to spend a lot of money on training. So government is coming in as a support, so that you have fund where you have contributed to, you have more fund. Like it's like you want to go into mortgage. Look at NHF, for instance. So you want to buy a particular property, you don't have enough money, you can go to NHF and then you see. So it's more or less the same thing that we're talking about in this in this instance, we are talking about training of your manpower and not acquiring property. So what government start to benefit, apart from that, it's also a source of revenue to government. Take it or you leave it, government is making money from it. And I keep telling people, whatever they call social, whatever, anything that government is saying is for social, whatever, they are making profit, they are making money from it. If they are not making money from it, that is what government is supposed to be. Government is supposed to be, is supposed to be not for profit. They are supposed to make sure that people, the society is, is well. You are supposed to use just social responsibility, but they are making money from it at the end of the day. Otherwise, how do you explain all the money that you have in ITF, and then you have some people investing, you have some people, and then they also invest this money in certain, they also divert this money in certain investment, and then they make their money from it. So these are things that we need to. These are things that we also need to. So these are things that we need to have in mind. It's a source of revenue to government, and as well, government is also supporting the development of indigenous skilled manpower. Let's move on. So what do you start to benefit as an employer? As an employer, like we said, cost of some of this training are so expensive that most employers, they find it sometimes difficult, to pay for some of this training. By the time you look at cash flow, you look at your turnover, you look at your revenue and all of that. So you find it because you want to look at to carry this amount of money and then to go and spend on training. No. We just look for some other training. Can we have in-house training? Can we do this once? So again, like I said, for some companies in health, some in health, some in telecommunication, there are certain trainings that are must for you, for your employees. You have to, they are must for you to make sure that your employees are, given that kind of training. And if you are not, you won't be able to also you won't be able to take business from some other people, from some other company, international, local, and the like. So you won't be able to take to get businesses from them except you have. So take for instance in telecommunication, you want to deal with some telecommunication companies. They tell you have to have this kind of training. Your officers, your project, your officers they must have this level of certificate before you can even put them forward that these are the people that are going to execute a particular project. So if your project team are not well equipped in that area, they don't have something in that area, it means we can't even get that business. So that's why. And then, like I said, some of these training are so expensive. So it's easy for you to go to ITF, use your money, to go to ITF and claim reimbursement, and then in that is supporting you so that you are not hitting into your revenue, too much. And then of course you can be able to provide that kind of training, to your employees, especially those that are, the frontliners, those your impact, like I said, the project team. So I'm using, don't mind me, I'm using that example, but I feel that's the one that is most appropriate for now, and that's what can come to mind. So let's look at what are the I think that's even the last slide. Okay, so Mr. Yemi, I think this is the last slide. So it's not. It looks simple, but everything that we have here, it's not all that difficult, but you pay good attention to it. HR person, you pay good attention to it. You make sure you fill all your forms appropriately, and then you have all your documentation. Don't forget, make friends with ITF officials. Make friends with ITF officials. It is very, 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 very important. If you are friendly with them, you'll be able to, you'll be able to move around, do whatever you want to do without any bottleneck, because they also have a way of creating unnecessary bottlenecks for you. But when you make friends with them, they want to even put you through whenever you are making mistakes. If you have if you have a form that is outstanding, they want to tell you this form is outstanding, fill this one. This particular document is outstanding. Make sure you have this one. and then you have all that put together, and then you submit to ITF. Honestly speaking, you have your reimbursement. So you can access, like we said, up to 50% of whatever you have been contributing. Don't forget. This is, don't mind the slide. It's just straightforward and it's boring. The slide is boring, but I had little time. I just had to quickly put it together. Once Mr. Yemi, when it got across to me, I just had to quickly put it together so that I have something. That will be all for me from now. So we can, I'll hand over, Mr. Yemi. You can take it up for me.
Thank you so much, sir. That was straight, direct, but beautifully put together. We'll quickly like to take some questions, clarifications. So if you have questions, 2 ways, drop quickly in the chat box and Mr. Ladejo will respond to them. Or if you prefer to speak, you can also raise your hands. We will grant you access to unmute and you can quickly ask your questions. Please go straight to the point, please. Let's see if we have any questions already. Let's see if we have any questions already. All right, so we'll take Mr. Sheyi Adegbola first. If you have questions, quickly raise your hands so that we can be out of here in no time. Mr. Adegbola, over to you, sir, for your question.
Thank you, presenter. I have an issue at hand. ITF agreed with my company that we can be paying on yearly basis. What is the risk factor of this?
Sorry, please come again.
ITF agreed with the company I work presently that they can be making remittances on yearly basis as against what is stated in the law. And that is what they have been doing in the last 3 years. So what is the implication of this? And they have not been able to get any reimbursement no matter what they file.
Okay, Mr. Sheyi, sorry, ITF on its own, this reimbursement, we know it's, we said it's an annual payment. So if you say ITF agree that you pay it annually, so that's why I'm confused, because it's something you pay once a year. So maybe I'm not getting your question.
Okay, while we wait for clarity on that.
Remittances, monthly remittance, not reimbursement.
ITF is yearly, that's what we are saying. No reimbursement, ITF, you pay it once a year, and that is 1% of your total annual payroll figure. That's what you pay once a year.
Okay, contrary to my former employment, that the same ITF requested for monthly payments. That's why I'm so interested and asked that question.
Okay, so that's an arrangement with ITF. So if you have, like I said, instead of you pay, normally is at the end of the year, ITF will calculate 1% of whatever your total annual payroll is. And that is what is going to ITF. So if you have an arrangement with ITF that you can be paying monthly, that calculation will also be done by ITF and whatever the figure, but you also need to take into consideration, because on a monthly basis, that might also change as a result of your staff turnover. You have staff coming in and going. So it will also affect your payments monthly. So that's what I'm saying, that if that is an arrangement between you and ITF, the calculation will probably be done every month by ITF as well. So that's another area you need to look into. But if it's at the end of the year, you're only going to have everything together. This is what your total payroll figure is at the end of the year. And ITF will calculate 1% of it, and that is what is going into ITF.
Okay, we have Busolami. Busolami, you have the floor, please. You can ask your question.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Adeosun, and thank you so much, our presenter, Mr. Folaranmi. So my question is, because you mentioned that sometimes when you do your calculation for your remittance, that ITF officers, they can come back to recalculate and ask you to pay the difference. So what is the salary element that we should consider when calculating the 1% annual remittance? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so by law, your 1% is calculated on gross. Your 1% is calculated on gross. So your annual, what do you call it? Gross payroll figure, 1% is calculated on it. That's so you know what your gross is. So your annual on that, on your gross, which of course you know is what ITF is expecting from you.
Okay, sir, there are some questions in the chat box. You may want to look at them. You may also stop sharing the screen so that.
Okay. What's the salary element? I think we've answered that one.
Yes, you have.
Someone said, okay, Mr. Oyemi, someone said, is it 5 employees and 50 million or either of the two?
This question is looking like 25% of FCT type question.
Election, thank you, Mr. Because if you look at the act said for every company that you have, not less than 5% or 50%. So if you look at it, for me, if you make annual turnover of 50 million, fine, you have to contribute. If you have minimum of 5 employees, in your employment, you also to contribute. If you have both, that the major contributor, that's what it means. So, but like I said, for more clarification on this as well, ITF is they are everywhere. So you can as well, visit any ITF office, ask for clarification, just like if you're working into PENCOM and ask questions on PENCOM. So some of these things are, the information is available everywhere. You can also go online, go into their website, whatever you need to ask, you can chat with them, their contacts are there, phone numbers are there. You need to put that call, that you can do all that to ask whatever that you think, is not clear. So all that is available. Yeah, Mr. Yemi, that's. So I'm also looking at the chat box.
Somebody is saying here that what does it mean to make friends with ITF in black parentheses, and how exactly can that be achieved?
Well, I think maybe you're going to answer that one. Making friends, I think, because like I said, well, I have been in the public sector and I understand how they work, how some of these government establishments, if you really want to have your way, because they have a way of stalling processing, they have a way of frustrating you. They will tell you, come tomorrow, come next tomorrow. If you like, tell them, put all your documentation, all your form, fill them properly, put them in one single envelope, padlock it, and then carry it to them. Say, okay, see my envelope. I have filled all my form, accurately. I have all my documentation. See, everything is here. They will tell you, well done. I see this one. This form is complete. They will say, okay, you have tried. See this one. What they get? I even put my passport. They will tell you that's very good. You are good. You are very good. But if you don't understand the language, that's what I'm saying. But you need to make friends with them. Otherwise, they have a way of meeting people. This is, you want to claim reimbursement, you want to claim money, and they're also expecting you because you want to get money. And they're also expecting you after all that at the end of the day you get money. They forgot that this money is not coming to you, it's coming to your company. But you are representing the company. So if you are coming, PR is very important. Make friends with them, make friends with them, get some of these things across to them, and then you won't have any problem. I can assure you of that. It's something I've been using, and this is something that I've been working with, for so many years.
Okay, so let me share some things I know some people have done to make friends. I'm not advocating that you do any of these things, but these organizations that I know have done it willingly from their hearts. It wasn't as if a demand was made. So for example, during end of year, when they are sharing rice, for example, to staff, they identify all their critical stakeholders. They include some of the staff of ITF, like maybe and what they do, they don't give one person. Yes. And I will tell you why. If you give one person, that one person can be transferred or redeployed. So they will identify like 4 or 5 people, so that at least, no matter what, 2, 3, 4 of them will be available the next year. In addition to treating them as stakeholders, that they give maybe like end of year rice or AMPA, okay? if the company does souvenirs, for example, maybe you do calendars, diary, those kind of things, they also give them. Now, I will also quickly add this, even though I wanted to ask it as a question from Mr. Oladejo, but let me ask this. They intentionally, the company also makes sure that from time to time, they patronize ITF on ITF trainings. I'll say that again. From time to time, ITF themselves organize trainings. So whether they think the training is valuable or not, they just try to make sure that from time to time, of course, they have many trainings, they look for the most valuable ones and send staff. So that way, ITF now also sees them like as a customer, and that anytime we are doing training, from time to time, this organization sends their staff, they rate us, they value us. Okay. So people are asking questions around. So Busolam is saying, do you consider payee before the remittance? Because you said the calculation is on gross. Hello, sir.
Sorry, I lost you for a minute. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, someone, Busolam is saying, do you consider payee before the remittance? Because you said the calculation is on gross.
Okay, so calculation is on gross, like we said, but payee is something that payee is also going to government, unfortunately, it's going to your own what do you call it, the local government. This is federal, and this is item, something that is going to the federal government. And so, like we said, everything is based on gross, and you calculate whatever you have put together on gross. So if you take payee out of it, I said again, many of our payrolls are, we have actually doctored them for the purpose of tax reduction. And some of these things, by the time you do your calculation at the end of the year, you calculate your 1%, you take it to ITF, they will still bring you back to it because you are going to submit your annual audited account, you are going to submit your own payroll figure, and then they will do their own calculation and take you back to what your 1% is actually supposed to be. So if you have actually under-remitted, they will let you know, and then you are going to pay the balance. But again, like I said, make friends with them. When you make friends with them, they are the ones to come to your office and do this calculation for you. I have friends like that. They will come to my office, they will look at the payroll figure, they will help you adjust. They will help you do every necessary thing that you need to do. And then they will tell you this is your payroll. If you say, this payroll, if you want them to reduce, they will still reduce for you. They have a way of doing it. But we won't say that here. Make friends with them, be friendly, and then they will put you through on how to do it in actual fact. There are certain things I wouldn't want to be like Mr. Yemi said. We won't want to say, go, give them this. No, I won't say give them this. Just make friends with them. Once you make friends with them, most of these things that you are asking, they will put you through, and they will tell you how to, how best to go out to, to handle it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any more questions, or can we call it a night? Can we call it a night? Okay, I would like to sincerely thank you once again, Mr. Folaranmi.
Sorry, Mr. Yemi, before you go, there's one last question. Somebody is asking. The person said, please, who is responsible for the 1% payment? Is it employee or the employer? Okay, so it's actually employer. The employer, you are not the one to pay as an employee. You are the one to pay to remit the 1%. Employee is the one, tax payee and the likes, you are the one to pay, it's coming from you. But this 1% ITF is the employer's obligation. Thank you, Mr. Yemi, for the opportunity.
Okay, so let me just extend that conversation by saying quickly here that anytime, for example, we are advocating to management to increase the salary of staff, there's what we call CTC, cost to company. If, for example, your total salary in a year was 30 million, and then you do maybe a 10 or a 20% salary increment, and then maybe you move it from 30 million to 50 million. Previously, you were paying 1% of 30 million to ITF. Now, you will also now be paying 1% of 50 million. Exactly. Same thing as NSITF. So when we are calculating the total cost of the proposed increment in salary, we must add this indirect cost. It's a cost to the organization, but not a cost to the employee. Okay. And by the time maybe your finance department is advising management, they will put all these other associated costs. You may just be focusing on, we're just moving salary from 30 million to 15 million. It's not just. ITF will go up. What do you call it? Pension will go up. NSITF will go up. And that's why we have to now put all these factors into consideration so that we can see, for example, the organization can afford it or to what extent they can afford it. I just said, let me push that in based on the last question Mr. Oladejo just answered. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's high time we called it a night. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll keep the conversation going. Next Saturday, next Sunday, we have other lineup trainings that will meet your immediate learning needs and also your developmental career goals. Thank you so much, Mr. Folaranmi Oladejo. God bless you. Good night. Have a great week, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.